What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the fifth and final day of 5 days of color grading, where every single day this past week I gave you tips and tricks on how to get better at color grading and how to make better looking images. Today I'm going to be showing you something really cool. We're going to be building out a basic workflow that you can use to apply to any footage to color grade it and make it look beautiful. This will be a node tree that you can set in stone and just change a little bit here, a little bit there, and make any footage you have, whether it's Sony, Canon, Panasonic, Arri, Red, look fantastic. This is what I do on the majority of my color grading and what I'm doing on this clip right now. So without further ado, let's get started on this final day of the 5 days of color grading. Let's go. So as you can see, I have this footage right here in front of me. This man, he's contemplating. I think he's in a mirror. He's tired. I don't even know. But we're gonna bring a beautiful image out of this flat picture that we have out here. So let's start building out our nodes. And I'm just gonna press Alt S, and that's gonna create a new node, and we're just gonna create 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Now this may seem like a lot of nodes, but we're really gonna make this into something that we can replicate throughout different projects in the future. So let's start labeling and organizing. So the first node is going to be Denoise. I can't even spell. Denoise. The second node is exposure. So I'm just gonna put expo. The third node is white balance. WB. The fourth node is going to be saturation, so I'm just going to put sat. The third node is going to be our look, and the fourth node is going to be our CST, color space transform, and the fifth node is going to be our shadow desaturation. I'm going to put it as shad desat. So let's begin. First, before we start, we're gonna do something. We're gonna add a parallel node to this look. So I'm gonna right click on here. I'm gonna go down to add node and add parallel node. So that has now been created into a parallel node, and this second node is gonna be called skin correction. So we're gonna label that. So one thing that I love to do with my nodes is making sure that they're organized, and instead of just dragging them into place and getting them all organized like that, just right click on some empty space, click clean up node graph, and there we go. We got it cleaned up and ready to go. Now let's get started. And the first thing we're gonna do is hop onto this CST node. We need to transform this footage into Rec 709. So let's go over to effects, go to color space transform, drag and drop that on our CST, and then we're gonna put input color space to Sony S-Log Gamma 3, input gamma to S-Log 3, and then we are going to, we have bypass on, and then we are going to put Rec 709 and output gamma to gamma 2.4. Alright, now our footage has been converted from S-Log 3 to Rec 709, and if you want to get a preset that does this automatically for you, check the first video in this series and you'll find a download link there for you to download a CST preset for any major camera on the market. Now that we have our CST in place, we're going to go backwards and we're going to start at our Denoise. So let's hop over to our Denoise node. I'm just going to zoom in on his skin just so I can get a full understanding for what the Denoise is actually doing. So we see there's a lot of noise, a lot of nasty colorful noise, which we do not want at all. So we're going to do denoise. We're going to go down to motion effects and we're going to go down to our denoiser. We're going to click the frames to 3 and I'm going to put Luma. We're just going to see what it does. I think I'm going to put Luma at around maybe 6. I don't want to lose too much detail, so let's see the before and after real quick. That's not bad, but I just want to make sure the detail isn't fully lost. So we're going to keep it at about 12. That's looking nice. Let's see if we can lower it a little bit. That's looking good. Let's actually keep it at 7. So let's now move on to the exposure node. Now with the exposure, I like to always have an S-curve in some way on my footage. So that's what I'm gonna add. I'm fairly okay with the darkness of what we have right now, but I just want to add a little bit more pop. So I'm gonna go to our curves, make sure the curves are open. We can also have our primaries open here. And I am just gonna raise the highlights a little bit and then just slightly bring down the shadows. Yes, there we go. Slightly bring down the shadows. And this is already a high contrast video. So we're not gonna do too much. We're just gonna pop. We're just gonna make those highlights pop just on his forehead. We just want those to pop. And I really like how this is contrast wise. It's really oversaturated, but how it is contrast wise is really good. Now, next, let's move on to the white balance. So for the white balance, I can see that this is a little bit orange. I can look and see with this highlight, it's a little bit towards the orange. So I'm just gonna bring out the orange from this clip a little bit, and I'm just gonna use the temp. That's it. You don't have to use gain, you don't have to use offset, anything like that. Just the temp controls will be just fine. So let's lower that down to a point where I feel comfortable, and I'm checking out my scopes also just to see what they're doing. And I think I'm gonna lower it to, for this clip, to about 130 or to, what was it, 370, 360. Let's see what 360. Yes, there we go. This is looking good. This is looking good. So this is starting to look fantastic, but his face is a little bit too red for my liking. So we're gonna lower the saturation of the overall clip in our next node, the saturation node. And again, we're just gonna use the saturation slider. So let me lower the saturation, and I'm gonna lower it to about 40, about 42. That's looking comfortable for me. Now, of course, don't take these numbers that I'm doing and just recreate them yourself, because of course your footage might need saturation like this. Your footage may need saturation like this. It depends, but keep in mind the overall techniques of what I'm doing and not the exact numbers, because they're gonna of course vary depending on what footage you have. And next, this is where we add our color, this is where we add our mood, this is where we add all the different beautifulness. Wow, it looks so orange. Wow, it looks so blue. This is where we're gonna add all that stuff. Now for the look, you're just gonna be using the color wheels. Now for me, I wanna keep the highlights fairly neutral. I'm gonna be messing around with the gamma and the offset. And you know, you can add a little bit of the lift in and a little bit of the gain if you want your shadows to be a certain way. But for me and this clip, I want to keep these highlights fairly neutral. So I'm going to be messing around with the gain and the offset. So let's make a look real quick. Let's go to gain, and we're going to pump this up to a nice orange. And we're really not focusing on his skin because we're going to correct that, but we're focused on the overall image of how does the environment look? How do we want the environment to look? Because the skin is going to be corrected later. So let's focus on that. So let me see. I'm liking this. I like that orangey feel. It's looking really nice. It looks maybe like a morning. And we just did that with a simple push towards orange in the offset and a little push towards orange in the gamma. Now, of course, his face is too orange and we need to bring that back. And we're going to be using a technique that we used in a previous video, which is using the hue versus hue and the hue versus sat curves. So I'm going to go into hue versus sat first, and I'm going to create a selection on his face, a neutral part of his face. So I'm seeing this forehead portion right here is looking really good. So I'm just going to do a selection here, and our selection comes up in the red. And as you know, if it ain't in the red, then it ain't right. Alright, so let's see here. Let's move it into this portion. We're going to stretch that out a little bit, have it creep a little bit into pink so it covers his lips and everything like that, and we get a good selection. I'm going to creep this back from green a little bit. Okay, and so now we're going to start lowering that saturation, bringing out that saturated orange in his face. And then we're going to go over to hue versus hue and do the same selection. Bring it out, bring this other section out to like around pink, and then we're going to start messing with the hue just to bring out a little bit more of those reds in his face. Yes, there we go. Let's bring out a little bit more of those reds. I'm going to pump it up. Why? Because I'm going to be lowering the hue a little bit. Let me just bring up the saturation to just make sure that we're at the same levels in the hue that we want to be at. And I'm going to open up my waveform, vector scope, see where we're at in the hue. We're supposed to land on that line right there, so that's looking good in terms of hue of the skin. And so now let's go back in our saturation and bring that down. I'm liking how that's looking. I'm liking that. I like that. That looks good. Let's see the before and after of the skin. Before, after, you're not gonna really notice it that much, but these subtle things, especially with this footage, but look at that. You can see kind of like the orangeness in his face. You can see here on the scopes how it leans a little bit more to the Y, leans a little bit from that red skin tone line, and then we can activate it and see how we've pushed it more onto the skin tone line. So just little things like that make a huge amount of a difference. Let me actually just bring this out a little bit more. There we go. Looking really, really good. We've neutralized that skin a little bit more, and we've made it look really, really good. got that red tones back in it, but because we just used hue versus sat and we use it in a parallel node, it still looks really blended in with the overall surrounding. Now, to show you that this can be made for any look, let's flip the script and make this into a more blue image. Now, because we've done exposure, white balance, and saturation already, so all we're gonna have to do is mess with look and mess with skin correction. So let's go back to our look, and I'm just gonna reset these. And now I wanna push it towards the blue a little bit. So let's push the gamma down enough. Of course the face looks terrible, but let's neutralize the face just so it doesn't look too weird already. So let's bring the face back down to normal. That should be around to normal. As normal as we can get it for now. And then we're gonna start going back to the look, and we're gonna start messing with those colors. Now, he's in the middle of war, getting ready for him to suit up and fight D-Day. I don't know what kind of movies have blue hues, but we're gonna see how hard we can push this. And this is also where we're gonna add in this last node, because you'll see how this makes a dramatic change with these shadows, especially highlighted in blue. So let's make this correction, and then I'll show you what the last node does. I'm liking this. I'm liking what it's looking like, but of course his face is not what his face is not facing. So let's see what we can do here. So let's go back to saturation and bring up the saturation in his face, and that's already starting to look good. Look at how the pinks are returning into his face. It's looking fantastic. So I'm gonna overdo it just so that I can then do the hue and figure out where I want my hue to be. And so I'm actually gonna hue it down just a little bit. And I'm seeing his lips are not being affected in the way that I want them to be. Yeah, see, we have to bring it out. Sometimes parts of people's faces can have different changes in color, and because of that you might need to draw this out a little bit more. So we're just going to draw this out into the yellows a little bit more, draw this out into the pinks a little bit more, and that's going to give us a better selection. So let's see where we want the skin to be. I am quite happy here. You might do a little bit, actually let me bring it up a little bit. And now let's start bringing back that saturation. Let me draw out here also. There we go. And so now let's go back, and this is going to be a little bit of a back and forth adjustments just to get to a happy place that we want to be. But I am starting to like this clip, and that is looking good. And we can check the before. Oh, look at that before and after. That's the before, that's the after. Look at that. That's the before and that's the after. I might draw it out a little bit more just to cover his lips a little bit more, just because his lips are a little bit of a different shade than his skin and his forehead. So I'm just gonna draw that out a little bit more. And the final thing we're gonna do is talk about this final node, and you're gonna really see it in this blue color grade. And that is the shadow desaturation. So this is a technique that a lot of other color graders use, and it's something that is very important, and that's desaturating the shadows. And I'll show you how to do it right now. So it's gonna be done on a simple curve. So we're simply gonna go to Luma versus Sat, and you see these lines here, these thicker lines. We're gonna click on the first line and make a selection right there, and then we're gonna make sure this is centered, and we're gonna take this first point and just drop it down. And you see right here with these shadows, oh my goodness, let me just do the on and off. This is the before. Look how blue those shadows are. And this is the after. We've desaturated the shadows, and we can even go back to our waveform, and if we look down here with the shadows, this is the before. Look at that separation between colors. That means the blue is really high, and this is the after. We've brought those down. And you can even, if you want, depending on the clip that you have, you can draw these out and make them a little bit less or more. I prefer to just keep them here. It's just touching the shadows and not touching anything else, and I really love that. So this is our color grade. It's looking fantastic, and this is the node tree that we use to make two separate color grades. And it took us 2 minutes to change from one look to the other. Imagine what you can do with different clips over time when you're making videos every day, every other day, and you want to do unique color grades. This is going to be fantastic. Now, of course, you can add on different nodes if you want. You can add another node and make it grain, or you can add a different node and add qualifiers and different windows and different things like that. So this is a simple way, once you build this out, to make fantastic looking color grades quickly. Now, because I don't like it when you have to do work, I will be providing this power grade for you to download in the description below. All you're gonna have to do is drag and drop it onto your footage, do some tweaks, and you're gonna have beautiful looking images. And just to show you how quickly we can change between different looks, let's make another look in 30 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Let's reset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Right there. That's it. That's my color grade. Maybe okay, 22, 23, there we go. And we have another grade. Now, of course, you're gonna be spending more time on this. You're gonna perfect it a little bit more, but this is a technique that you can use to make simple, fast color grades. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed this full week of color grading tips. Also, don't only download this power grade, but if you check the link down in the description below, I'll be providing all the links to all the previous videos, and almost all of them have download links to a different type of power grade, whether that's black and white power grades, CST presets, or even vintage look presets, which I know you guys like. So thank you so much for watching this series, and I will see you next week with more content.